Alrighty, everybody, I'm opening the book right now. I'm opening the slide. Can everybody see my screen okay? Good. Okay, great. Okay, we're going back to this book right here, folks. Okay, the field safety book. So we're going to go ahead and pick back up where we left off last week. And let's see, we're going to go ahead and we got all the way to right by the bench grinders. Okay, so let's go ahead and kick it off back at page. This is probably the only one I told you that will probably hopefully break the modules. Okay, because I really want to try to keep at least one or maybe two modules per session. Okay, so let's go to let's go ahead and crank it out, and let's start on. We talked about hydraulic tools last week. That's where we left off. Okay, and we talked about filling hydraulic tools with. Remember, it's not going to be oil. Okay, it's going to be actually hydraulic fluid. Okay, so it's going to be a thicker fluid, and we want to make sure that we have adequate pressure in those hydraulic jacks. So we're going to go to page 44 in the field safety book, and it's section 6.2.6, and we're talking about abrasive wheels. Okay. So things we want to remember, and look, when we talk about abrasive wheels, folks, we're talking about usually on two types of grinders, right? We're going to be talking about on grinders that are bench grinders, like you see on page 45, and then we'll also be talking about items like angle grinders too, like hand grinders as well. So as far as the grinders, as far as portable grinders, right? Rules that we want to remember, items like this, right? Is when using any type of power grinder, what do we want to do? Of course, always wear eye protection, right? Let me ask you out there, who also out there requires your employees or the people that you're training to wear face protection as well as eye protection? Okay, great. Okay, great. And those of you who are requiring them to wear face protection, you're still requiring them to wear eye protection underneath the shields. Is that correct? So they're wearing shields, but they're also wearing glasses, correct, as well, correct? Okay, good. Okay, so items like that. Also, always making sure that you're matching that. All right, thank you. You also want to make sure that that wheel, the RPM on the wheel, is going to match the rating RPM on the grinder as well. Okay. Um, on the hand grinder, the angle grinder, a lot of times the warnings are gonna rub off of it. The warnings and the instructions. It happens so frequently with power tools, right? Hand power tools. But that bench grinder, absolutely make sure that, and I think there's a little bit of tolerance on that hand tool because it's so common that it happens. But remember to keep that to assure that you have that grinding wheel information or the RPM information on your bench grinder because for the reason being, first of all, that's not a reinforced disc. That disc is made out of stone and adhesives, and there's no reinforcement, like there's no type of mesh or any type of steel inside the disc, okay? And then also making sure that we turn off the grinder, right, whenever it's not in use. We also want to make sure that we don't do any type of grinding or work around any type of hot work, around any type of flammables. We need to stay at least 35 feet away from any type of flammables. And then also never clamp a handheld grinder to any type of vise or anything like that. What we want to do is, we want to try to make sure that we also want to make sure that if you can use a bench grinder, use a bench grinder, okay? If you're going to use a hand grinder, you're going to use a hand grinder. I think a couple of you that I see that you sent me a message, excuse me, folks, that you can't see me. You should be able to see the screen now. And if you're on a phone, you may or may not. I'm not sure, to be honest with you, okay? But also, we're recording it, just so you let you know, I'm also recording the session, okay? So, like I said, we're starting to put them all up on YouTube, and we're going to get all of you the links on them as well. Okay, so let's talk about minimizing power tool safety and risk. When I sent you all of you the videos the other day, did I send that power tool? It's about a 22-minute power tool video. Does that can okay? Okay, you can see the screen from the phone. Okay, great. Okay, I'm gonna check with the others to see what's going on. Maybe a different device. Okay, I'm gonna send the link with some videos, folks. I think we'd sent them a while back, I'm going to send you 2 scaffolds. I'm going to send you 2 fall videos. I'm going to send you a power tool video, send you a crane rigging video. So what I'll do is when we get off the line either tonight or tomorrow, I'll make sure that I resend it to anybody who wasn't on the list originally. It might have been before some of you joined. So I'll send you all those videos because we definitely are having problems streaming on Citrix, okay? And actually we had a problem with Adobe when we used it too. It's just a bandwidth issue is what it is. Okay, so things that we want to do. We want to inspect all cords and hoses before we use them prior to every shift. We're not going to use any type of tools with damaged hoses or cords. We're going to keep the cords and hoses away from any heat, any oil, any sharp edges, right? Anything that may damage the cord or force it to leak or cause a shock hazard. Also, we're not going to attempt to operate any power tool before being properly trained on it. Especially, folks, the biggest one I'm going to tell you are the powder actuated tools, right? Any, like we talked about last week, any type of powder actuated, especially ram set. Because ultimately, remember, ram set, what is it, right? It's got a shell, it's got a blank, it's got a projectile. So what are we talking about? It's a gun. Okay, so we definitely got to be careful with it. In addition to that, we're also going to wear our eye protection, all of our PPE, right? Hard hat, any PPE that's required to work with that power tool. If the manufacturer suggests it, I highly suggest it. If the manufacturer tells us to do it, and then it's obviously recommended. And it's also sort of citable through OSHA. If the manufacturer tells us to wear it, we don't wear it. In addition to that, we want to wear proper clothing, right? Make sure that it's close-fitting clothing. We don't want it too baggy where it may get caught up, shirt tail or sleeves may get caught up in a power tool, and we may have a wrap hazard or a pinch hazard. And also, don't let others distract us while we're working, right? A lot of times you'll hear, does anybody out there, do any of you follow like the 10-foot rule when somebody's doing any type of welding or cutting or grinding where other employees need to stay at least 10 feet away from them? Anybody follow that rule? Yes, it's more of a best practice rule where you'll hear a lot of, especially in a lot of refineries or a lot of manufacturing facilities, you'll hear employees basically say, or safety people say that 10 feet of that operation, that person owns that operation, right? So it's one of those things that you just want to be able to command your space so that you can safely work. And ultimately, they don't need to be in a hazardous area. And if anybody's in that area or in your proximity while you're working, remember, they're also exposed to the hazard, so they should be equally as protected with PPE as you are. Okay, does anybody have that type of policy on their work site? Good, a few of you do. Good. Okay. Um, And then in addition to that, also we want to make sure that we don't engage in any horseplay, not running or throwing objects. Consider the safety of others, right? To make sure that they're at a safe distance and also that we're at a safe distance. Never leave any type of power energized tool around that it's unattended. Unplug it, right? Pull it out of service, move it to the side if necessary, where it doesn't become a trip hazard or any type of moving object hazard. assume that Assume that a safe and comfortable position before you start doing any work. Basically, try to avoid any type of awkward positioning, right, for ergonomics and or for the safety for power tool safety as well. Also, secure work with vice grips or clamps. Now, when I'm talking about securing the work, we're actually talking about. Remember, we're going to have two things, right? You're going to have the tool and you're going to have the stock. Let's say if we're talking about grinding, and basically, and let me pull a picture for folks for anybody who can see it. Do me a favor, folks. Anybody, and you feel free to send me a text or a message through here, and let me know if you're able to see the screen now. If you're not, I'm wondering if it's maybe like an iOS device or a or if it's a iPhone or iPad issue. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so let me go. Let me go to grinding now. Okay, so let me. I'm going to a grinder now, folks. Okay, so we got a grinder, right? Let's say we have a Bosch grinder or something like that. And I want to actually get a picture of somebody grinding. Let's see. Okay, so somebody's grinding here, right? We have all these photos of somebody grinding. This is what we're going to have. We're going to talk about three different things going on, whether it's a power tool like this or whether it's a machine, okay? So machine, what am I talking about? That bench grinder that you see on page 45, that's going to be a machine. And then also you're going to have your portable grinder as well, which is the tool, right? Power tool. So here you go. You see where this, can y'all see this right now? The grind, can you see the grinders, folks? Oh, okay, good. Okay. Right here where we're cutting block, we got three things going on, right? We obviously got our grinder. You know, obviously you see no garden place, right? Um, you have your grinder, you have the stock. Whatever we cut is going to be the stock. And then the point of operation is where the tool meets the stock. So here, where the blade meets the stock, okay? So again, here where they're cutting steel, you're looking at the tool, the blade, obviously, the stock, and then the point of operation right there, the point of operation where the tool meets the stock. So that's basically what I wanted to go ahead and point out to you right now, okay? So things like this. So if we're doing something where we're grinding with a hand grinder, what we want to do is secure the stock. Whereas if you're grinding off the hand and then you secure the grinder, it's called offhand grinding. So now what am I talking about? Bench grinders, right? Now I'm talking about here where an employee is holding the tool, holding the stock and grinding the stock onto the wheel. Let me ask you folks, here you go. Here's a better illustration of it right here. Let me ask you folks, who out there, tell me if you if you are sure that your employees are not, who has their employees or trainees wearing gloves or grinders and who does not have them wearing gloves or grinders, especially, let's say, bench grinders in particular. Tell me either way. Tell me if you do or if you don't. Okay. All right. I got a couple of each. Okay. So let me show you. Okay. So let me show you a couple of things. Anytime you have a bench grinder, let me go. I'm gonna go to an Osha. Uh, it's OSHA. It's the OSHA amputation. Okay, and then it's power tools. Let's see, power tools. And I'm doing file type PDF just because I know what I'm looking for in this particular document. Right here, you see this one right here, safeguarding equipment or protecting employees. I think I showed y'all this once before. Exactly, yeah, with bench grinders, we definitely do not want. With hand grinders, the belief is that both hands should be in control. One should be on the handle, one should be on the body of the grinder. And that's why we normally would, is because of proximity. So folks, anybody who we're searching this document, what I'm doing is I'm doing Control F on the document. I've got my search window here, and let's go ahead and search gloves and let's see what we get. Okay. Okay. So look, one of the first hazards they're telling us as we're searching it is that even gloves can get caught and tangled in the machine, right? So they're starting to this is OSHA starting to identify the hazards for us in this publication. There's a case study of an employee wearing gloves getting caught in the machine. Let's see. Uh, Again, look, they're telling us that gloves can be caught in machines as well. Okay, operators, right here, instruct the operators not to wear gloves, jewelry, or loose-fitting clothing while operating a bandsaw, right, and to secure long hair and a neck cap. They're talking about specifically, obviously, that bandsaw now. Here's another one. Again, they're talking about the risk of amputations. Okay, a drill press now. Right? So removing a part from a drill press while wearing gloves now because we're doing a repair on the machine, and then advising employees not to wear gloves, okay, while operating a drill press. And this is where the significant risk comes in, okay? So the thing is, there's one for a milling machine. So with grinders, what happens is you really have to make the decision. Here you go, right here. Look, wearing gloves while grinding, where it's possible to have a glove get caught between the gloves and the revolving disc, right? So that amputations might occur. So that's why we definitely want to use exercise caution, because what'll happen is right here, look at this. Do not wear gloves, okay? Jewelry or loose fitting clothing while operating grinding machines, right? And secure long hair to a cap. So what happens is that that's where the risk comes in. We're wearing gloves, and what happens is this is not in an OSHA standard. This is actually in this book, and so what happens is it winds up being a general duty hazard if something happens, because OSHA's warned us in this publication. Were y'all familiar? Let me know if you were familiar with this publication being out there or not. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. A lot of people don't realize it, right? And I teach a machine guarding, that 4-day machine guarding class for OSHA, and that's where I've learned it. Here's the document number if anybody wants it. It's right there, folks. Okay, OSHA 3170-02R. But you saw how I got to it, and there it is again. Let me leave it up there for a few moments, okay? Okay, so let me go ahead now and go back, and this is how I searched it, folks. OSHA amputation power tools, file type :PDF, all one continuous word, and that's how you can find it, okay? Okay, so we're gonna move on. Okay, so also avoiding accidental starting, right? Never carrying a tool with our finger on the trigger, kind of things that we covered a little bit from last week, but I wanted to recap a little bit. Being sure that the power tool is properly grounded, right? Make sure the power cord is in good shape as well. Ensuring that the tools are de-energized before we perform any maintenance. What's the easiest way to do that? Unplug that machine, right? Also, not using any type of dull or broken tools or accessories. Using a power tool only for the reason that it's intended to use. Keeping our feet, fingers, and hair away from the blade or any other moving parts on it. And then never operating a power tool, if our hands or feet are wet, right? And then we'll go ahead and close it out on the last page, on page 46. Keeping the work area clean. Obviously, housekeeping is really important, because we don't want something that we failed or we lacked in housekeeping. We don't want that to become the hazard, right, while we're working with any type of power tools, especially anything that has any type of high-speed rotating equipment where it may become a projectile. Also, becoming familiar with the correct operation and the adjustments for that power tool as well. Also, keeping tools sharp, keeping them clean, and in best performance as possible. Following the instructions of the manufacturer's use of the equipment as well, of the tool. Keeping a firm grip on the power tool at all times, making sure that we secure it, have it held securely as we use it. Also using electrical cords that are sufficient size. So it goes back to also gauge of extension cords, right? So let me go and pull that up for us. A lot of times, obviously, we let price dictate what we're going to get, but the biggest thing is we want to make sure that we get tools that are sufficient, that are going to be able to hold a sufficient energy charge that we're going to go. So basically, the bigger the tool, the more amperage we're going to pull, and we will need to make sure that we've got the right rated extension cord. A lot of facilities. Let me ask you, folks. I think a lot of facilities out there, many of y'all should probably be on minimum 14 gauge or minimum 12 gauge extension cords. Can you tell me if any of you are working on sites where they're telling us what the minimum gauge extension cord is? Traditional, easiest thing to do, folks. You probably lost the labels by now, or they probably wore off or fell off on any extension cord you have. The next time you go to Home Depot, Lowe's, or Ace Hardware or something, check out. I want you to go to that section, right? If you get a minute, and check out the difference between a 14 gauge and a 12 gauge, or a 16 gauge and a 14 gauge, and you're going to definitely see a significant difference. Okay. Also, while we're on it, let me show you something else. Also, let me show you one last thing. Let me open this right here. Okay, so I got this open. I want to show you something. You see this number right here? That's 16.3. Okay. What that's telling us is that this is a 16 gauge extension cord with 3 wires. The wires are the hot, the neutral, and the ground. So I want to show you, since we're talking about this, I figure let's just go ahead and knock it out. Here you go right here. This one's a SO, and it's a 14-3. So it's a SO cord. The jacket on it's a SO cord, right? It's 14 gauge with 3 wires. That means it's hot, a neutral, and a ground. You'll see it right there as well. Now that, in comparison to, let me show you Romex, okay? When you deal with Romex, let's say in your home or your business, it'll wind up being something like this. And when you deal with Romex, what will happen is when it says 12-3, now this Romex has 4 wires in it. And the reason being, I want to pull a picture for you so you can actually see it on the wire. What happens is that in an extension cord, you count the ground, okay? In a Romex, in a Romex, you do not. So this Romex right here, it's yellow. This is telling me it's a 12 gauge wire. That's why it's 12 right there. And 2 means it's got 2 wires excluding the ground. So you got a hot, you got a white neutral here, and then of course your ground that's not noted on that number, okay? So you see here, you see 12 gauge, right, on the yellow. White is a 14 gauge. That's a thinner wire. This will go on a 15 amp breaker or 15 amp fuse, folks. The 12 gauge right here, this will go on a 20 amp breaker or a 20 amp fuse. Okay, and then this is a 10 gauge. If you have an electric water heater, this is pretty much what you're running. Okay, it's gonna be a 10 gauge. And what'll happen is you actually have, this is a 12-2. It's got 2, right, a hot and neutral, and then a ground. This is a 12-3. It's got 1 hot, a black, a second hot being a red, a neutral being a white, and then the ground that's not counted. Okay, and the same thing here with your 10 gauge as well. Okay, yeah, got it. And when we go through electrical, I'll make sure that we touch up on that just a little bit more. I know last week we talked about it a bit, but that way I figure you get a better look at it. Okay. All right. So so moving on. In addition to that, also is making sure all the guards are in place right on the tool. If the manufacturer suggests or recommends or mandates that we use the guard, we use the guard. And if not, most of our corporate policies do, right? So if our corporate policy is we use a guard at all times, we use a guard at all times. If the manufacturer says use a guard at all times, use it at all times. If the manufacturer recommends we use the guard, and then it's recommended. Okay. All right, great. Also, then safety switches, right? Making sure that our safety switches are in place. And then also, in addition to that, as y'all know, as most of us know, in industry, we usually remove the auto lock also, right, on the grinders as well. Okay. So I want to make sure, but even like this DeWalt, we're not going to be able to pull that power switch, right? Or the trigger switch. We're not going to be able to pull it on this DeWalt without hitting a safety switch first. That way we can't unintentionally do it. Okay. All right, great. And then also reporting any type of unsafe conditions or equipment to our supervisor and removing any damaged books from use and tagging it out with do not use tags. But I tell people, don't only put a do not use tag on it. Why don't you do this? Let's take the extra effort. Let's take the extra effort, and why don't we go ahead and write on there why we took it out of service, right? Don't y'all think it would be a better idea that if we went ahead, don't you think it'd be a better idea that if we went ahead and sent everybody and told everybody why it's out of service, maybe people would be less likely to put it back into service? Would y'all say that's a fair assessment? Okay, good. All right, good deal. So we'll go ahead and move on, okay? Okay, so let's go. Did anybody, let me know, folks, let me know if you were able. I know some of you can't answer because you're on a phone or it's a little bit harder. Let me know, those of you who can, let me know if you got to the questions, maybe in the first chapter or 2 chapters, the green questions or the white questions. Let me know how you're looking on that. Yeah, you're right. Most times they chop up the ends, right? That somebody said about power tools. Absolutely. Sometimes they don't because they want it to go home, right? At the end of the day, or maybe the company wants to take a look at it first. So Okay, good. Okay, so some of you have. Okay, okay, good. How'd you man? That's out of 25, two. That's not bad at all. That's you probably did a lot better than me. Did y'all? But you see? Do y'all see where I'm talking about how those questions are they're worded a little funny? They're not. Then Yeah, I tell you what. I love the book. Um, I don't know. I'm okay with the questions, all right? But I love the book. Okay. All right. Good deal, folks. Okay. And then so let's go ahead and move on to section 7, right? And section 7, let's talk about a few things, right? First of all, let's go ahead and talk about health hazards, right? Now, what are we talking about? We're going to talk about chemicals. So this is what I'm going to do is while I'm gonna use the book, and then I'm also going to go to a PowerPoint presentation that I have. I'll put it up so we can kind of talk about it as well, okay? And it'll kind of go hand in hand. So, look at the trade terms that we have here, right? Obviously, acute effect. Basically something's going to be immediate, right? It's going to probably be serious as well, okay? And in this situation, we're actually talking about immediate exposure to hazardous chemicals, and then chronic effect. Chronic effect usually it's delayed, usually takes a little bit more time, and at the same time, it's often going to be either permanent or it's going to be almost permanent. Okay, so we're going to talk about that in a few minutes because I'm actually going to pull out two different slides so you can kind of check them out. Okay, matter of fact, let me pull the first one out now while we're talking. Let's see. Okay, so this is the first one, right? Let me just go to this one particular slide for a moment right now. Excuse me. Okay. Um, okay. So let's talk about Hazcom, right? Let's talk about Hazcom first. First of all, um, who's done their Hazcom training already? I think I asked last week, but let me ask it again. Who's done their Hazcom training already? Okay. So every employer has a responsibility to train every employee on hazardous communication. Okay. As a matter of fact, let me show you. Let me show you the OSHA citations, right? Before we move on, let me show you the OSHA citations because for the last handful of years, um, it's been actually number one. Has been number one's been falls, and number two has been the what you call it citation for GHS. Okay, so let's see. I'll tell you where it's going to be easy. I'm just going to go to my LinkedIn. I'm going to show you the 2015, 2016 did not change. There were a couple of topics that switched over from one another, but for the most part, they were all the same. Okay, so let's see. Right here. This is the 2015 citations right here, folks. Look at number 2, Hazcom. Okay. Why? Because of failure to do our GHS training. Okay. So definitely keep that in mind with your employer. Also, I think we're going to be doing it in the next few weeks, and I'll make sure that I'm going to show you right now, but we're also going to do like a kind of like a turbo boost your Hazcom training. So I'll make sure you all get a link to be able to watch that. It's a non-NCCR thing. It's more for just OSHA trainers, kind of trying to straighten out their credentials and stuff, kind of like strengthen them up a little bit. So I'll make sure everybody gets a link to it as well. Okay, but this is what I'm talking about right here is that number two hazard and number two most cited again in 2016 and in 2014 was Hazcom. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about it for a minute. So we're talking about Hazcom. Now let me go back to the original PowerPoint that we're looking at. Okay, so Hazcom, a lot of people think that it's OSHA, right? Hazcom's not OSHA. It's actually the EPA. Okay, so the EPA actually established Hazcom, and what it is it's us as the public. It's our right to know what chemicals we have that are in our community. Okay, we know because of the EPA, we have the right to know what chemicals are being produced, what chemicals are being refined, distilled, okay, transported, uh, uh, stored, distributed, retailed, all through our community. Okay, it doesn't matter if it's in a refinery, if it's in a pipeline, if it's in a train, if it's in a vessel, if it's an automobile, over the road truck, any of those, we as the public have the right to know about it. Okay, so what happened is OSHA basically adopted the Hazcom standard from the EPA, and that's how we as the employees get our rights. Okay, so like I said, here the EPA, they protect the public. OSHA adopts it. Now we get protected in the workplace. So we actually have dual protections for that. Also, a few different chemicals, right? Let me show you chemicals that we often use every day, and they could have potential hazards. The WD-40, right? We use it quite often. Let me show you something. Let me show you how stringent California is about hazardous chemicals. You see where this thing is manufactured? This particular WD-40. Look where they don't sell it. It's pretty good, huh? They have another version that's actually sold in California. Okay, so it's this one is manufactured there, but it's not allowed to be used there. Okay. All right, and then we're going to talk about these all these hazardous. You see here like hazard identification. We'll talk about all 16 parts of the SDS in just a minute, and then chemicals. And look, I'm using minor chemicals, folks. Okay, I'm using WD-40, right? I'm using Windex. I'm using motor oil. I'm just trying to show you that every chemical out there has a SDS, has a safety data sheet, or if it's an older chemical, a material safety data sheet. All right. And then what happened? It used to be called the material safety data sheet. Now it's a safety data sheet. The biggest change between all of it is that now, and this was the big push, is that now all of our chemical classification sheets must be standardized into the same 16 parts. Okay, so I'm going to show you the parts and that's where I'm coming up right now. So folks, here you go. These are all the 16 parts, and then I'm going to go back to a GHS and SDS, and we're going to go back to the one in the book as well. Okay, and the pictograms, you can either look at them here on the website, and if not, if you got your book with you, they're going to be on page 49 and 50. All right. Okay. Section number 1. What does the manufacturer have to tell us, or the distributor? They got to tell us all of the information on that chemical. That chemical, they have to give us its name, its product identifier. I'll tell you about that in a second. Who manufactures and or who distributes it. The name and address and phone number for at least one of them. Also, that phone number they have to have an emergency response number on there. That emergency response number has to be manned 24 hours a day. Okay, so they cannot put an answer machine on there. That emergency response number it can be answered by an answering service, but it cannot be answered by an answering machine or voicemail. It must be somebody who's physically going to be able to pick it up just in case of emergency, because this works more or less like the poison control line. Okay, so the reason is when people call, why are they calling? Because they probably need help. Okay. Section 2 is the hazard identification. And I'll tell you what, folks. While we do it, I apologize. Do something for me. We'll kill two birds with one stone. Look at page 55. If everybody could go to page 55, I'll give you about the next half minute or so to get situated there. And let's do this. I want to take the next 2 or 3 minutes, go to page 55 and 56, right? And I'm going to leave this up there. I'm going to run through all 16 parts really quickly. And then I want you to look at the safety data sheet so you can see. So let's run through all 16 parts, right? Identification of the chemical, all the way down to having the CAS number, which is the chemical classification number for that chemical, which is almost like the social security number on that chemical. Okay. Number 2, it's going to tell us the hazards that are associated with it. It's also going to put the pictograms in there to tell us what hazards are associated with it. Section 3 is the composition and the ingredients in it. And now it won't give us all the information. And the reason it will not give us all the information is because the government is going to protect all chemicals with proprietary protection. So let me ask you a question, folks. Who out there uses Windex? Anybody? And let me know if you use Windex. Let me know if you have in the past. Let me know if you use WD-40. Okay. So most of us all use it, right? Pretty much everybody. Why do we use those brands? Why are we buying those particular brands? Yep, because they work, right? Most common, best known, most marketed, right? Absolutely, right? Work the best, absolutely, all of those. So we use them because we know we've gotten proven results out of it, and or our families have. So this is the thing. Imagine this: if they put every chemical, or even the majority of the chemicals that were in this product, in the safety data sheet, don't you think any other country could just go make the same thing, or or even local? Any other manufacturer could make it. So therefore, because of that, the government allows the chemical companies, the chemical manufacturers and producers to only put a limited amount of contents on the safety data sheet. Okay, usually it's the most common or the most plentiful contents and or the most harmful. Okay, that's exactly why. That's why they have to protect. They don't have a choice. They have to protect trade secrets, because if not, everyone would make HP toner, right? Everybody would make um, Roundup, right? Everybody would make Windex or WD-40. Okay. Section 4 is going to be first aid measures. It's going to tell us what to do in case of somebody getting has this chemical enter their body, whether it's through inhalation, injection, or absorption. Section 5 is going to tell us what we need to do in order to put out with a fire with a fire, what type of fire extinguisher we need. Normally, I'm going to tell you what they tell us. They're going to tell us it needs a dry chemical powder, carbon dioxide, or they'll specifically tell you like a BC, and or maybe even an ABC. Okay. Normally, what we need is a class B because it's a chemical. The thing is, usually B's either come comboed with a BC like in refineries, or ABC like we normally find in general offices and our homes as well. Section 6 is going to be any accidental release measures, what they have to do in order to start safely picking up the material. Section 7 is handling the storage of it, right? Can we handle it? Can we put it on a pallet jack? Do we have to lift it and have more safe considerations? Can we put it on the pallet? Whatever the case is, okay. Can we store it near water if it's a hydrocarbon, or if it's a water? Can we liquid? Can we store it next to another chemical or next to a powdered chemical like maybe chlorine or something? All right. Section 7 is going to be our Ppe exposure. Section 7 is going to tell us. Section 7 is going to tell us how we have to safely work with that chemical and what PPE is required in order for us to work with it. Let me ask you a question, folks. Anybody ever stained wood out there before? Anybody ever do what I did and stain wood with latex gloves instead of nitrile gloves? The first time, learn your lesson really quickly, or am I just the only dummy? So let me show you what I'm talking about, folks. Right? Anybody who's asking. First of all, we shouldn't be using latex because you never know who's going to be allergic to latex, right? Or you may develop it. So let me show you. Okay, so usually when you use stain, if you read that safety data sheet for stain, it will tell you to use a nitrile glove, right? Like one of these purple gloves or a blue glove or something like that. Anybody who's ever used latex gloves like this in the past, or the thin vinyl gloves, what winds up happening is they'll wind up busting. Then all of a sudden your hands are brown, right? Next thing you know, you just, you give up and you just keep on staining because your hands are already brown, okay? So it'll either be a glove like that, or it'll be a vinyl glove. Gloves like very thin, right? Thin millage gloves. Now what happens is that wood stain will tell us to either use a neoprene glove. Anybody who doesn't know what a neoprene glove is, the best way I can explain it is like a palm olive glove. So I'll show you in a second. Let's see. So neoprene gloves, some will look like this. Okay, these are the heavier gauge ones, and then you'll have some lighter ones like this, like almost like palm olive gloves at Home Depot. So let's see. You'll wind up having neoprene gloves. They look almost exactly like palm olive gloves. That's the best way I can explain them. Okay, so let's see. I'll show you what I'm talking about. Talking about gloves like this. Okay. So we want to use either nitrile, neoprene. Let me show you nitrile, or like these blue or purple gloves like this. Okay, neoprene. And if it's like acids or caustics or something like that, what'll happen is they'll recommend that we use butyl gloves, which are these big, thick rubber gloves like this that you see. Who's ever seen the butyl gloves out there? The big, thick. They're hard to bend your fingers in. Okay, good. So a few of you have, right? Okay, right here is a perfect example, right? These are pretty much the highest rated chemical gloves that are out there, depending on the millage. Now, let's talk about your nitrile glove for a minute, right? It'll tell you to wear at least a minimum of a nitrile glove. But the thing is this, is what you want to look for is your millage, okay? Because the millage determines how thick that glove is. So if you get a thin one, anybody ever do like, I'll give you an example, like around here for first aid and CPR, we buy the HDX gloves. Anybody seen these gloves at Home Depot? They're okay, but they have their limitations, okay? They're okay, they'll do their job, especially for the price. But what happens is, if you want to get a good glove, you have to get a decent millage. It'll probably be like an 8 mil, 9 mil, 10 mil glove, because the higher the millage, the higher the number in the millage, the obviously the better off we're going to be with the quality of the glove, okay? So just keep that in mind, okay? And then you see it right here, folks. That's an 8 mil glove. It's right there, okay? I think that the HDX ones, let's see, it's right there. And then the HDX ones, I don't even know that they have a, I don't even think they state the millage on it. Let me see. Yeah, I think it's on the bottom of the box, or it's really small or something like that. Like I said, it's a very inexpensive glove, so you get your money's worth, but just keep that in mind, right? The thicker the mill, the safer the glove is normally going to be, the more it's going to last us, okay? So who's familiar with that as far as that those nitrile gloves come in different millages? Okay, so a few of you are good. That's great. Whoever didn't, good, right? We'll pick up another tool and put it in our box tonight, right? So good. Okay, so let me keep on going now. Let me go back to the description of the SDS. Okay, so we're all the way here, right? To 8, 9. It's its physical characteristics, right? And physical and chemical properties of the chemical. 9 is its stability and reactivity, how it can react, how stable is it. 11 is its toxicology. A lot of times, 11 and 2, we wind up finding the pictograms. Okay, if you look on page 55 there in your section 2, originally they were saying that they're going to be in section 11. But because the manufacturers want us to know the hazards right off the bat now, right, for liability purposes, what's happened is most of the pictograms now are often found in section 2. But don't take it for granted. If you don't see them in section 2, don't assume that it's not hazardous, right? You want to just make sure you read it to see if it says that there are no known hazards possibly. And that's what Windex basically says, okay, is that there are no known hazards, and so does HP toner. And then you got sections 12, 13, 14, and 15. And what happens with 12, 13, 14, and 15 is it's got a little star. And if you look below, it basically says that it doesn't pertain to OSHA. Okay. Now, what is it? It's ecological, right? That's our EPA. Disposals can be our EPA as well. And then you've got transport information, the DOT. And then the same thing, well, excuse me, I'm sorry, folks. The same thing with section 14 as well, right? Regulatory information, and it basically lets us know what agencies it has to respond to. And then last of all, 16, when they don't know where the information should go, or they got something that doesn't fit the model of the other 15 sections, it always goes in section 16, okay? This was the biggest thing about GHS, is that they went ahead and standardized it so that everyone will know how to read a safety data sheet now. If this safety data sheet is 3 pages long, we know that section 8 is going to be related to our PPE. If it's 60 pages long, it'll always be section 8, and if it's 600 pages long, it'll always be section 8. Okay, so those are your 16 parts. Now let me walk you through these pictograms, and then I'm gonna have you take a look at what we're talking about. Okay, with that safety data sheet for a few minutes. Okay, so look at it now. So here you go. Here are your pictograms. This is also in your book. This is also in your book. I think it's at page 52 or something. Let's see. Excuse me, page 49 and 50. So you'll see, and first of all, the first one is close to the heart. I'm talking about off of the monitor. You're looking at it's close to the heart, right? It's a potential carcinogen. It might be mucinogenic. It might affect our respiratory tract. Okay. The next one's a flame, right? Flammable. It's pyrophoric. It could be self-heating. It could emit some flammable gases. It could be an organic peroxide. So it could basically probably either with very little effort either ignite easily or explode or burn. And then, of course, exclamation point telling us it might be an irritant, it might be a sensitizer, it might be acutely toxic, it might harm us quickly right now. Also, it might give us a narcotic or a high effect. It could affect our respiratory tract, and of course, it's going to affect it could possibly harm our ozone. And then you see the next one. The next one, I know what you're thinking. You're probably thinking it's a wine bottle. It's not. It's a gas cylinder. Okay. So what are we looking at? We're looking at a compressed gas cylinder, and basically it's telling us that it's under pressure, right? It could be a projectile. Yeah, I saw. Thank you, folks. I saw a few of you said that. Yeah, you have taken Hazcom. I saw someone say that you took your Hazwhopper. Yeah, good. So it's covered. Now the thing is you can take your Hazwhopper, and also if y'all covered GHS, make sure that that it's noted that the employee covered it. But definitely make sure that all your employees are Hazcom trained. Okay. And the government doesn't have a limit on it. They don't say it's got to be an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. It's just that it has to be adequate. Okay. And then, so let me go back now. It's gas cylinders, now corrosion as well, right? It could be corrosive to the skin, the eyes, right? Damage. It could corrode metals. Think about what it can do to our respiratory tract or our lungs if it can corrode any of that, right? The sixth one that you see there is explosive bomb. It could be self-reactive organic peroxide again. So basically now what happens, it might become explosive, right? It could raise basically the LEL, the lower explosive limit of the room. The seventh one is an oxidizer. Now remember your fire triangle, right? You have what do we have? We have flame, right? Oxidizer, and then fuel, right? So this is the thing, is that I've had a lot of employees tell me, man, the flame over circle, right? The oxidizer looks so much like the flame, like the fire. You know what? How about this, folks? Let's treat it the same. The hazards are significantly the same, right? So let's treat them the same. And then, of course, environment, right? The fish in the tree. You see the fish flying out of the water there. You probably get a better look at, folks, if you look at page 50 in your book, if you got your book, and you're going to be able to see a much better picture of it, okay? And you can tell it's really a really simple fish there, right? He really not hasn't been exposed to a lot of life, right? And then, of course, acutely toxic, right? It's called crossbones. We know that now it may be acutely toxic as well. Okay, so let's do this. Look at page 55. All right, let me put back the 16 parts of the safety data sheet. All right, right there, and then we're going to do this. I'm going to leave it there for a few minutes. Just take the next 2 or 3 minutes, check it out. 4 minutes. I want you to check out this. I want you to read. I want you to look at these sections, and I want you to go to your safety data sheet so that you can identify them and you see them on the safety data sheet that's on page 55 and 56. Okay. So I'm gonna put you on hold for about 3 or 4 minutes, and then we're gonna come back and we're gonna talk about. We're gonna go ahead and start talking about a couple things to close out, folks. What I'm gonna do is this. I know we started late, so I'm gonna go ahead and set us up for a break at 7:45. we'll take about a 10-minute break tonight, okay? Or we'll take it at 7:50, jump back on at 8, and then roll it through till 9 o'clock, okay? And I'm going to try to get us as close as I can to where I originally planned on getting us tonight. All right, thank you. Okay, folks, everybody okay with that? Anybody still working on it? Are y'all okay? Okay, good. Now, look, folks, like I said, you could have a safety data sheet, right? There's 2 pages like this. Let me show you one. Let me show you four common ones that we often use, okay? All right, folks, here you go, right? Here's HP toner. So check out HP toner. Look at and this is what I'm gonna do. I'm only gonna show you 5 sections, okay? Let me go back. I apologize. Let me go back to the PowerPoint real quick. I'm only gonna show you 5 sections. Let me show you the 5 sections I want to show you, okay? Okay. Here's an example of a label. These are the 5 sections pretty much. These are the 5, they're all important, but when I train employees, these are the 5 sections I really, really, really want them to drill down on, okay? Number 1, because it's got, just give me 1 second, folks. Section 1 because it's got all the product identification in it. Section 2 because it's got all the pictograms and hazard stations. Might be section 11 though too, right? But like I said, it's usually section 2. Section 4, first aid and CPR. Section 5, firefighting measures. And then section 8 is PPE requirements, okay? So at a minimum, that's what I want employees to be able to recognize those 5. And the label doesn't always look like this. It depends on what it's on, right? So, but there you go. As you see, right, we took these 5 sections of the safety data sheet, and then we went ahead and identified them as you see throughout the label, okay? All right, let me go ahead and pull up the safety data sheet again. Let's see. Okay, so here you go. Here's the here's the safety data sheet again for HP toner, right? Look what it says here. Look at hazards. They're saying none, right? No symbols, okay? There's your CAS number or your chemical classification numbers that I was telling you about, okay? Now, sometimes you'll find the chemical classification number here too for that particular product, all right? The 1-800 number or the customer care number, okay? First aid measures, firefighting, right? Like we were talking about, everything standardized, and then PPE as well, okay? No PPE required. All right, so let me show you a couple of them, and I think you're going to find a couple of them interesting, okay? So now let me go back and let's see. Here you go now, Johnson & Johnson. Here's your Windex, folks, okay? So again, right, you see it, no known hazards, right? Everything the same, right? Section 1, Section 5, first aid measures goes here. Section 4, no first aid measures, firefighting, and then PPE, and no requirement for PPE as well, okay? All right. And then just basically washing your hands. You see it, washing your hands thoroughly after using it, okay? Okay, so now let's go to WD-40. This one you're going to find really interesting, I think. Okay, so here you go, WD-40. So check it out. The last 2 had no known health hazards. Look at this. Something we use on a regular basis, right? Now it's flammable, right? Now it could be it's a can under pressure, and now it can also potentially be a carcinogen and irritant, right? or some other hazard, it'll go ahead and tell us here. Now, also what you'll notice, folks, and I'm going to go back to the label. You see here, it's got the word danger. There's only 2 words, okay, that'll be on here. It'll either be warning or label, but it'll always be one or the other. All right, so warning being less risky, and then danger being the more risky of the 2. And then it'll go on telling us first aid measures. Now you see they're kind of telling us, right, what to do with first aid. Okay, they're talking about firefighting measures as well, how to put it out. And look what they're saying, a dry chem, right? You see it right there, use a water fog, right, or a dry chem, or carbon dioxide. So it's going to be more of a B, maybe an ABC, okay? And then it'll go into even telling us with PPE. And look what it tells us about gloves. All right, skin protection, right? Wear chemical resistant gloves. Let me ask you a question. Is that a statement or is that a recommendation? Is that an instruction or a recommendation? Y'all want to guess? Well, look, I'm getting mixed reviews on it, right? I'm saying some recommended. Let me ask you a question. Where does it say recommended? You know? Okay. So yeah, so look at the eye contact, right? Wear glasses if contact's possible, right? And then it's telling us none required for ventilation. You see it, respiratory protection, but look at the skin protection. Wear chemical resistant safety gloves. I mean, wear chemical resistant gloves. I mean, it's a statement, y'all. They're telling us what to do. Okay. And then let me get you to one more now, and then we'll get out of these. I want to find this Shell gasoline. Let's see. Okay, and then here's your gas one. Okay, so look at it now. Look at all the pictograms now, folks. Okay, so definitely now you see all the pictograms are kicking off, right? Now what happened? Now it's also an environmental hazard, right? It's an irritant, right, or a respiratory hazard, flammable, and then of course also it could be a carcinogen or an irritant as well. Okay, one of the most dangerous things we do every day. Look at it. Okay, is messing with that gas, or every few days is fueling up that vehicle. Okay, so just keep it in mind, all right, folks. All right, so y'all good with safety data sheets, folks? Is that let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question. Putting it into perspective like that, does it make it for some of you that may either didn't have GHS or have had it in the past? Does it kind of put in a little bit better perspective? You know how easy it really is to use a safety data sheet. Okay, good. Some of you, yes, right? Some of you already had it. Okay, good. Okay. All right. So that's your safety data sheet. Let's see. Then I think I'm gonna backpedal. But let's backpedal. Let's see. What time is it? Yeah, we got about another. I'll tell you what. Let's do this, folks. Let's go. Let me show you this diamond real quick, and then that way we close out of this chapter, okay? And then when we come back, we'll just kind of talk about it and move forward. All right. Look at page 53. And now we're talking about our DOT placard, right? And we did this a few weeks ago for some of you that were online. This is a DOT placard. Let me show you the HMIS and DOT as we're doing this as well. I'm going to show you. I'll show you both of them. Okay. So if you look in the book, the same thing we have here, right? What this is called, this is the NFPA diamond. This is the 704 diamond, okay? Anytime you see this, what the 704 diamond is this is what I want you to remember. Look at the color code. This is all standardized, right? The blue is our health, how we're affected. Red is flammability. Yellow is instability or reactivity. And then the white here, the white is a special provision and tells us what a particular hazard is, okay? So basically this W with a line in it, if you look in your book, it's a water reactive. So it's probably some type of like either acid, okay, or something like that, or caustic, something that when water hits it, it'll wind up reacting, okay? Like some type of maybe like boracic acid or something like that, all right? Okay, so as far as the 704 diamond, if you look at it, okay, it is if you look at it here, right, it's the most severe is a 4. Okay, so this thing is very flammable here on our in the webinar. The 4 is the most flammable, and if you look in your book, it's a 3, right? Little less hazardous, but it's a little more reactive as the one that we have in the book. Okay, so what'll happen is this is the 704 placard, and then we'll also have the hazard identification placards that you'll see on your right hand side there. All right, in the book on page 53, right? Non-flammable gases, flammable liquids, inhalations, hazards, corrosives, and then oxygen. We'll have all those DOT hazardous material labels as well. And then look at the HMIS. Now, let me explain this, and then we're going to break in the next couple minutes. This right here, NFPA, this will be carried. This placard, let me tell you the 5 places you'll see this placard. You'll see it if something's being transported on a cargo plane. Now, any hazardous materials like this, just so you know, cannot be transported on a passenger plane. All right, they must be transported on a cargo plane only. Also, a train, 18-wheeler, a pipeline, and a vessel. Okay, like a barge or a boat or a vessel, something like that. So let me repeat them. Right, let me repeat all 5 of them for you. Okay, when we normally find this DOT placard, right, we're going to find it maybe in a cargo plane, a train, an over-the-road vehicle, a pipeline, and a vessel. That's going to be the 5 places that we'll probably find this DOT placard. Now, once the product becomes manageable, right, and when I'm talking about manageable, what am I talking about? I'm talking about like a chemical tote. So let's say, let me see if I can find a chemical tote on here. One of these. Who's seen these out in the workplace? Okay, a couple of you have. Okay. Anytime you see these, what they normally do is those are chemical totes, okay? They'll wind up holding anywhere from 250 gallons, 400 gallons, 600 gallons, depending on the size of the tote, okay? So these chemical totes like this, anything usually this size or smaller, right? So chemical tote there. It could be also, you know, a 5-gallon bucket, right? It could be anything with, you know, like a 5-gallon bucket like that, a 1-gallon, an aerosol can, a spray bottle, any of those will wind up having a label on it, okay? And the label it'll wind up having on it is either the one I just showed you in the PowerPoint, and I'm gonna come right back to it, or it'll wind up having a label like this on it, okay? And a label like this on it, what happens is this is the problem with these labels. Let me tell you, it's called the HMIS, okay? And let me go back to the OSHA fact sheet for us. Okay, so here's your HMIS, right? Well, this is the issue here. Is look at what the most severe is. It's a 1. So you see how my numbers are opposite now, right? The lower the number, the greater the risk, right? Whereas with the DOT, the greater the number, the greater the risk. The problem is this, is that they flip-flop back and forth on this HMIS label, on this Hazcom label. So what's happened is they go back and forth. So this one on the HMIS now, a 4 is the most severe, okay? Now if I come here to my on that label, now if I come to my HMIS meets almost like my Hazcom. And what happens is the higher the number, the higher the risk. Okay. So this is what I'm gonna tell you, folks, is that if you come into contact, right, with a chemical, or you're around the chemical, read the instructions. Find out if the high number is the bad number, or if the low number is the bad number, okay? Don't assume either way. Use universal precaution. Assume that that chemical, like, and you hear me say it over and over again, right? Assume that that chemical always wants to harm you unless we can prove that it does not, that it does not and it won't, okay? So let's do this, folks. Let's go ahead and let's pause here, right? It's 5 minutes. It's about 6 minutes to 8. Why don't we do this? Let's kick off until I'm gonna leave the webinar open. I'm not closing it, folks. So let's leave it open and let's reconvene at 8:05. Okay. All right. Thank y'all. I'm gonna leave. I'm just gonna mute it, but I'm gonna leave it online. Okay. Anybody that's signing off because you're on the phone, just jump back on in 10 minutes at 8:05. And if not at 8:05, right after 8:05, we'll jump on. We're gonna talk about the next chapter. We're gonna try to get through as much as possible to close it out. All right. And then next week we'll probably add a little bit to it. All right. Thank you. Hey everybody. Okay, everybody back in. Can you give me a head count when you get a minute? I just want to make sure we're all good to go. We're gonna crank it out in the next minute or so. All right. Just shoot me a message when y'all back in there, okay? Okay, great, folks. So we're gonna go ahead and kick it back off, right? Let's go ahead and go to module 2 in the book. We kind of talked about confined space a couple weeks ago, right? We used the sheet. Give me 1 second, and let me put this up real quick. Who was online a couple weeks ago or a few weeks ago when we did this sheet? All the responsibilities of entrant, attendant, supervisor, rescue personnel. Okay, acceptable oxygen and entry conditions. Who remembers this sheet? And who? Tell me if you remember it, and/or tell me if you were here for it. Either way. Okay. Okay. Good. Okay, great. I see a few of you able to jump on, so good. Okay, good deal. Okay, so this sheet, I'm going to email this to everybody along with some videos tomorrow. This is a confined space. I'm going to email this to you with another link or two for some confined space videos. If you get time between now and next week, watch them, okay? And then that way we'll kind of save some time in here, like we talked about. It won't be skipping. It won't be buffering. This and what it is that anybody who was not on a few weeks ago, there is a recording of this, what this is, and then I'm always happy to explain it via the internet or in person as well, okay, or by phone. Okay, so let's go ahead and go. Let's go to module 1, page 1. All right. I'm sorry, excuse me. I thought we were going backwards for a minute. Module 2, page 1. And let's talk about the trade terms, right? What are we talking about, right? Atmospheric hazard, right? What are we looking at? A potential danger, right? So there may be a air quality condition there, right? Also combustible, it's air or materials that might explode or cause fire. And then a competent person. Now look, folks, this is the thing about a competent person. Remember this, right? First of all, who is it? It's a person capable, and this is OSHA's definition. It's a person that's capable of identifying existing hazards, okay, or being able to predict them, right? Either way, okay. In the area that their work and conditions, right, might be unsanitary, dangerous, okay, hazardous, and they have the authority to take prompt corrective action. So let me kind of clarify this a little bit. Okay, so we have competent persons and we have qualified persons, right? So let me pull up the definition, the OSHA competent versus the competent versus qualified. Okay. This is a clarification letter back from 30 years ago that OSHA put out. So let me put it up here for a minute, okay? Okay, this is all I want you to read. Okay, hang on one second. Right here. This is the definition that OSHA has. The definition that OSHA has as a competent person. This is the definition that OSHA has as a qualified person. Okay? And just read that for a second, then we'll talk about it, right? Okay, so let's explain the difference. Okay, first of all, okay, a couple of you got a bad connection. Let me know. Hang on one second, folks. Let's see. Let me know. Okay, I see a couple of you said then you got a bad connection. Do me a favor, folks. Let me know. Let me know right now if y'all can hear me okay. Let me know if you can hear me okay. Let me know if you're having problems. Okay. So okay. So okay. So a couple of you are coming in good. Okay. So let me do this, folks. Is that I'm gonna keep. All right. I'm gonna keep going right now. If anybody has issues, I'll get you up to speed afterwards. If that's the case, if you want to log off and log back on, that's cool. If not, I'm also recording it, okay, just to remind you as well. But if we need to get on and do it in person again, I'm happy, or via phone, I'm happy to do it as well, okay? Also, I think, did y'all get a phone number where you could call in just in case you wanted to hear it also? I think you got that on the registration link, didn't you? Give me one second, folks. I'm just pausing. I don't want to leave anybody behind, okay? So let me check my email real quick. Let's see. I'll tell you what, hang on one second. Let me, I know where I'm gonna pull the number from. Everything that we're going to do for the rest of the night is from the book. Okay, folks, look, anybody who on a cell phone, everybody got free long distance? If not, I can see about trying to get a 800 number, but I don't know if they'll be able to do it tonight. Anybody who can still hear me, here's the phone number, 510. I think I lost a couple of y'all from the way it looks. So 510 365 3231. Okay, I'm gonna pause a couple of minutes. I want to make sure to see who can get back on and who can. Okay. We're about to start right back up. Okay, now I think I lost two, y'all. So hang tight, folks. Sorry about that. All right. I think something's going on with Syntrex tonight because there's way too many of us having problems in different parts of the country, and I mean, we got people on from the northeast, from the east. All right, Jason, I see you log back on. Can you hear me now, or are you still having problems hearing me? I see I lost Pat and I lost Sue as well. So okay, so folks, all right, so I'm gonna crank it back out. Do me a favor, just really quick, and just give me a mic check, because okay, I'm gonna keep going. Just give me a mic check one more time. Sorry about that. All right, and then we'll go ahead and we're gonna keep on going, and I'll just catch up with them to get them straight. So sorry about that, y'all. Anybody who's having problems tonight, all right? I don't know what's going on with Syntrex with go to training. Okay, so let's go ahead and roll through this, right? So So there's your definition of competent person. Let me go ahead and pull that back up one more time. All right, here you go. There was your definition of competent person. Let's see. Okay. There's Sue, I see you came back on. Pat, you just came back on. We paused, okay? So nobody's missed anything. There's your definition of a competent person, and there's your definition of a qualified person. So let's clarify this. A qualified person, right, is somebody who, through extensive experience, right, certificate or degree, has been trained in order to do an appropriate job. So let me give you examples of people who must be qualified, right? Electricians must be qualified. People who design scaffolds must be qualified. People who choose, select, and design protective systems and excavations must be qualified. Okay, riggers must be qualified. Okay, now also out of those same people, the majority of them, many of them still also have to be competent. So all of those people have to design, right, and select which are going to be appropriate. However, now it's got to be executed underneath the direction of a competent person. So a competent person is going to have to be qualified to their extent. So if they're also the designer, they'd have to be qualified to design. If they are just a competent person, they would have to be qualified enough to oversee, to supervise the task, and to make sure that it's being done adequately. Okay. All right. Can you guys hear me? Okay. I can't tell if I'm talking to myself or not, so sorry about that. Okay, good. Okay, great. Okay, and then competency. Really, the person still has to be so under the direction of a competent person, right? Is going to have to be the erection of a scaffold. Have to be the installation of a protective system, right? Excavation going on, and the protective system being installed. Also, a rigger. A rigger must be qualified and competent. A forklift operator must be qualified and competent. The reason being is because they're making decisions. They're going to protect, right, the stability of what they're doing, but they also have to have the authorization to do it. So the biggest difference is they could be qualified to different degrees, but the only way somebody can be competent is that the company or the employer has to give that person the right to take prompt corrective action. Are you with me on that? Is that somewhat clear for you guys? Okay, y'all. Okay, good. Okay, all right. I'm gonna move on. If anybody needs help with it, all right, I'll get you up to speed to it. Right. Confined space. What do we talk about? Confined space. We talked about that it's got to meet those three criteria, right? So let me go back to it. Let me go back to our. Let me go back to the permit required confined space that I had up. Yeah, and sorry about the hang-ups tonight, folks. I have no clue what's going on with Centrex, but I'm gonna talk to them tomorrow and find out what's up with it. So, and we'll have a plan B. Probably have some recordings online as of next week, so people can move ahead just in case it happens again. Okay. Okay. So here we go. This is what I was talking about. So same as the book, bottom left-hand side, right? These are the three characteristics of a confined space, y'all. It's got to be large enough for an employee to bodily enter and do their job or do their assigned duties. Okay. Also, that it has to be not made or not designed for continuous occupancy. And last of all, it's got to have limited means of entry and exit, right? Basically, you're getting in, you're climbing up, climbing down, shimmying up, shimmying down. Okay. Going through a manway or something. It's not through conventional means like a side hinge door or something like that, or just a wide open space. Okay. So that's the definition of that. Non-permit required confined space. What are we talking about? It does not have one of these elements that are here on your right hand side. It doesn't contain the potential for a hazardous environment or atmosphere. It's not going to engulf anyone. It's not going to have inward conversion walls. Okay, and it's not going to have any other serious recognized hazard. Okay, so that'll be the difference. And then oxygen deficient. Anything that's under this 19.5 right here, anything that's under 19.5 would be considered oxygen deficient. Anything that's over 23.5 in general industry or construction is going to be oxygen enriched. Okay, and anything in maritime. Anybody out there do maritime work? Anybody out there do work in the shipbuilding industry, longshore or terminal operations like sea cans or pumping bulk material like chemicals and stuff? No? Okay. Well, anybody who does something like that, okay, there we go. We got one, right? So anybody who does something like that, you're under the maritime, and maritime oxygen levels are 22% is the maximum enrichment, and that's because of the risk of flammability and explosivity with so much hot work going on. Okay. Okay. So let's go ahead, and then we have permit required confined space. What is a permit required confined space? It's got to meet the first three on the bottom left of the screen, right? It's got to meet these three to be a confined space, and these four, the same thing we said that for it not to be a confined space, it's got to meet one of those four. If it's one of those four, and then it would become we would classify it as a permit required confined space. Okay. Okay. And then we talked about qualified, and then zero state energy. What are we talking about? Right? Is that we completely eliminated or we completely neutralize any residual energy in any type of system, right? There's no more air pressure. There's no more hydraulic pressure, right? There's zero AC voltage. There's zero DC voltage, okay? There's zero air pressure, any of that. Okay. So let's move on, folks, and then let's look at module 2, page 2. And then examples on the left-hand side, kind of like examples like we have on the screen right now: manholes, boilers, trenches, tunnels, sewers, right? Underground utilities, vaults, pipelines, pits, air ducts, and then process vessels as well. Okay, and you'll see that's what you're looking at the bottom page there. You're looking at a process vessel on the bottom page. Okay, and then we talked about all the hazards already on a non-permit required confined space, what it's got to be missing or what it's going to have in a permit required confined space. So we're going to pass over that. And then if you look at the illustration on the right-hand side, we'd obviously be looking at significant risk, right? Right off the bat, I can tell you that's going to be a permit required confined space. How do I know? First of all, they got their rescue means available, right? You see they have their tripod ready. Also, if you look at it, you'll also see that the employee is also, they've got them tied off, right, with the harness, so they're ready to go ahead and pull them out should there be any mishap. Okay. And then, folks, you see the hose going in there. You see next to the ladder, you see that flex duct going in there. The biggest thing with flex duct is you want to remember this: is that first of all, we want to try not to extract out of a room. Never extract from underground, okay, from underground, because you never know what you're pulling out of the leaching of the walls of, like, let's say an underground cavern or cofferdam or something like that, or manhole. But more importantly, we really want to introduce more oxygen and more breathable air into the room. So that's why we'd be using a blower or something. The videos that I send you are going to show that as well. Okay, so you'll be able to see an example of how we should be blowing in instead of sucking out. Look at page 4 and 5, folks. You'll see a sample of a permit. Do me a favor and tell me if you use a permit, if you don't use a permit. Okay, do you use a permit? Some of you do. Okay, so let's do this, folks. Just take up. I'm going to pause for about a couple minutes, a minute and a half, 2 minutes. I just want you to read through the sections, right? Work descriptions. Then it's going to go into number 2, gas testing. Number 3, any type of special instructions, hazardous materials that may be identified for, any special protection requirements, right? Like any type of PPE, harnesses, fall protection, anything like that. 6, whether we have a fire watch or not, if it's required. Number 7 is the type of conditions and what we're going in. 8 is going ahead and is the improver supervisor on this particular one, and then individual review. I'm gonna pause for about another minute or two just so you can take a peek at it. Okay. Okay. Any questions on it? Anybody got any comments about the permit or anything? Okay, good. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, and obviously that's a minimal, right? Minimal content permit, right? We're often going more detailed permits than that. What we're gonna do for tonight, folks, is that for air quality, we talked about air quality recently. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hold off on the air quality meters tonight. Um, obviously it depends on the type of brands, right? You see a Draeger there, and you also see a Multi-Ray there. I'm gonna hold off on air quality because we did it, like I said, we did it a couple weeks ago, and then I'll also get everybody up to speed. And since so many people had problems tonight, I'd rather go through the reading material and then just kind of do a refresher on air quality next week. All right? Is that cool with whoever's left on the line? Okay, great. Okay, thank you, folks. Appreciate that. All right, appreciate y'all's patience. Okay, so let's go ahead and keep on going, right? And let's go to oxygen deficient and oxygen enriched atmospheres on page 7. Okay. So what processes are we looking at that might make a room or an environment oxygen deficient? It could be things like cutting a welding process, right? It could be argon. Excuse me. It could be argon. We could also be burning and flaring and doing it. Also rusting of any metal. That could be infiltration or any type of external exhaust fumes, right, for any other equipment. It could also be the breaking down of plants or garbage, right? It could be because there could be producing carbon monoxide. They could also be producing H2S or methane as well. And then also oxygen mixing with other gases as well is always a risk as well. And then what are we talking about, right? So these are symptoms of an oxygen deficient or deficient atmosphere or insufficient oxygen. People start to breathe fast, and then the heartbeat, right? Also, we may get impaired judgment, right? Poor judgment as well, poor decision making. We also extreme emotional reaction, also unusual fatigue, lethargicness, laziness, and then also nausea and vomiting, inability to move your body freely as well, loss of consciousness, and ultimately death, right? Depending on the length of time, depending on how deficient the air is as well. So like I said, next week when we do air quality, we'll talk about all that again. The videos that I send you are going to pretty much cover all of that, and then I'm going to cover the meters as well. Okay. And then what else are we looking at? Right, we're looking at combustible atmospheres. What are we looking at? Hey, where the air itself can ignite or material can ignite in the air, right? So that's examples of items that can be like flammable gases, right? That can be trapped in confined spaces. It could be things like acetylene, butane, propane, methane, and any other gas as well. Even to the point, folks, to where carbon monoxide is combustible. Usually, it'll become toxic to us before or oxygen deficient. But carbon monoxide, just so you know, is explosive as well. Okay, carbon monoxide, not dioxide. Excuse me, carbon monoxide. Um, and then spark flame can cause an explosion that we all know. Let's talk about toxic atmospheres for a minute. I'm looking on the right hand column, middle of page 7. Toxic atmospheres and gases, vapors. What are we looking for? Is they can come from different sources, right? They can be really deadly, and when we inhale them, we absorb them as well, and especially at certain concentration levels. So what are we talking about? When there's no ventilation or no ventilation, also high concentrations, they can gather quickly and become toxic. Even in lower doses, sometimes these chemicals can seriously affect our breathing and or our brain functions. Also, harmful effects of toxic gases or vapors, they can vary as well. Some toxic gases like carbon monoxide, right? They can't be detected or smelled. So carbon monoxide cannot. Also, methane is odorless as well. So those are examples of chemicals that may be either toxic and or explosive or flammable that we don't smell. Also natural gas, folks. Like natural gas is actually odor free. They put a chemical called mercaptan in it, and that's what makes it smell. That's the smell that we smell when we smell natural gas in our homes, or if there's a gas leak. Okay. And then what do we have to monitor for? We have to always monitor in this order, right? We have to monitor for oxygen first, make sure we have sufficient oxygen atmosphere. Second of all, we have to monitor for LELs, right, for flammable gases and vapors. And ultimately, the third thing that we're monitoring for is potential toxic chemicals. The reason you see them in that order is because back in the day, you would actually have individual meters for all three. It wasn't a multi-gas meter like we're used to now. So they used to use the old pump techs or gas techs. So let me show you what I'm talking about, okay? Talking about older ones. These are some of the newer now. Uh, tell me, you ever seen these folks? Anybody ever seen these pump techs or gas techs? These are called colorimetric tubes right there that you see there. Tell me if you've seen them or if you haven't seen them in the past. Okay, they're for single gas, right? And we actually have to know what we're reading for. So if we're reading for methane, if we're reading for H2S, benzene, toluene, we'd be using colorimetric tubing. The biggest thing is they're not quantitative, they're qualitative, meaning that somebody's got to compare them to a spreadsheet and to see what color the gas is. So it's all subjective on the person looking at it. Okay. Okay. Good. All right. So let me go ahead and move on from that right now. And I'm going over to page 8 now. And then of course we have like physical hazards as well, right? We could have things from like electricity, like electric shock. We could have also purging. Could be purging. Normally the gas of choice for purging is nitrogen. In a you can't. Okay, hang on one second. Now somebody lost a visual too. Can you see, Sue? Can you see these gas tech pumps here? Hey guys, can you tell me? Can you tell me who can see the screen? Okay, good. Okay, good. It looks like y'all are back now. Okay, good. Sorry about that. It's I guess it's that whole same situation. So, okay. So we're looking at electric shock could be a hazard. I'm in the book now, okay, just so you know, folks. And I'll probably try to stay in the book for the next 20, 30 minutes until we wrap it up, all right, instead of having any other issues. Um, and then purging, right? The gas of choice to purge is not normally nitrogen, okay? And the reason we use nitrogen is because nitrogen it's called an inerting gas, right? And inerting, inerting. And basically what nitrogen does is it robs the oxygen from the environment, okay? The oxygen that's left. So that's why, and not only that, but it's non-corrosive to the pipes. So therefore, what happens is that in most industry they purge with nitrogen to get hazardous chemicals and flammable chemicals out of pipelines, but that can create an oxygen deficient atmosphere for all of us. Okay. And then, of course, risk also like falling objects as well, right? Has anybody heard? You have a lot of organizations now starting to call drops programs. Has anybody ever heard of them? Drop program, DROP, or DROPS, drops programs? Okay. So, and the reason they call it that is because it's drop, right? DR object program. So that's why they're using the acronym now. Okay. So, that they figured, I guess they're being pretty slick about it. So, okay. And then also engulfment, right? We're concerned about engulfment. What are we looking at? We're looking at employees being able to be buried from things like collapses in hoppers or bins, right? Silos. Also, collapses of trenches as well. Okay. And then of course extreme temperatures, and that could be extreme cold and extreme hot. And of course we can get into the risk of hypothermia as well. We talked about that last week. And then of course noise, right? We're concerned about when noise get to be excessive. Make sure employees have adequate hearing protection. In some cases, they may also need secondary protection. It's not in the NCCR book, but we're gonna go ahead and address that over the next few weeks. We're gonna get a little bit deeper into hearing protection. Okay. And then slick or wet surfaces as well. Workers can get seriously hurt, right? They may slip, trip, or fall, as we know. And then, of course, moving parts, right? What are we talking about? We might get trapped in by moving parts. It could be flywheels, objects, chains, sprockets, okay? Any type of moving parts like that as well. So And then it'll go in and it'll talk about, I'm going to skip it for right now just because we covered it a few weeks ago, and then we'll cover it again next week. And y'all are going to see on the video as well. This is the only thing I'll ask you, right, is that after we wrap up tonight, anytime between now and next week, just watch the videos that I send you. Particularly, I'll note which ones I really, really want you to watch, which right now will be the confined space ones, okay? That way we can kind of catch up on this session since we had so many issues, and then everybody can kind of get up to speed. And we'll talk about the responsibilities one last time next week about the entrance, attendants, and supervisors. Okay, we'll go ahead and talk about all those responsibilities as well. And then if you switch to page 14, I'm sorry, excuse me, page 10, which is rescue workers. All right, we have two types of workers, right? We got rescue workers that go in, we got entrance, and we got non-entrance. No different from any other confined space job, right? We have supervisor, attendant, and entrance, but the supervisor can always be an entrant or they can be an attendant. But the person who watches the hole, we're all familiar, correct? That if you watch the hole, you cannot go in unless you relieve your duties and somebody else becomes the hole watch, right? Do we all agree in that? Okay, good. Okay, great. All right, and then safeguard, and I'm on the right hand side now, 1.5.0. We want a safeguard required, right, whenever we're working in a confined space as well. What are we talking about? We're going to be doing some air monitoring, right, some testing, make sure we have our adequate PPE, putting in whatever additional controls we need to put in place, maybe lockout, tag out, maybe ventilation, whatever the case is. Also, communications, and then making sure that we have adequate training as well. Okay. Um, and then, of course, like we said, we're going to be monitoring and testing. Who's going to monitor and test? The qualified person will monitor and test. Okay, you'll see it on the videos, and then also, like I said, next week when we talk about if you read those responsibilities of all those parties involved, entrant, attendant, supervisor, and next week we'll just recap them. Okay, but remember this: the person that is air trained has to be a qualified air tester. But ultimately, everybody else has to be trained. So technically, you'd be qualified on your job anyway. But the threshold of qualified person would be somebody who has some type of degree, right, education or background or extensive experience, and that's where the air quality test would come in. Now, the person air testing could be safety, they could be industrial hygiene, they could be a project manager. It might be one of the attendants, entrance, or supervisor, y'all. So, has anybody ever out there? Tell me out there if you've used an air meter, like a 4 gas or a 5 gas meter. Anybody? Good. It looks like most of y'all have, so good deal. Okay. Just make sure you get up to speed, all right? Whoever's meter you're using. A lot of times they'll have videos on the internet now. If not, talk to whoever sold it to you and see if, or go to the manufacturer's website and see if you can get some videos on it. Try to keep brushed up as much as possible on that, okay? All right. And then also, typical things, right? Like, ventilation. What we're going to do is I'm going to show you, let me show you real quick. Let me show you what you can do. And I want you to play with this weekend, okay? Or sometime between now and next week. Let me go to Google, and you can look up CFM Ventilation Calculator, okay? And what it is you can actually calculate. You can actually, like, room ventilation calculator. You see it here, okay? Let's see. I'm sorry. Let's do this online. When you come to some of these, what you can do is you can come to some of them, and you can actually wind up putting in your CFM calculations. I don't think this is it. Let's see. You can wind up putting in your CFM right here. You see CFM calculator? Let me see if this is it. Okay. So you can come in here. You can start putting in, I'm calculating a tank. You see it here. I can put the width of the tank, right? Let me say this tank is whatever. Let's say it's 100 feet wide, right? The height on it is 52 feet. And it'll start taking you through the whole thing, and it'll start telling you how many hours. Can y'all see this okay? I know it's kind of, sorry about, there you go. And it starts telling you the size. I'm telling it the size of the tank that I have, the height of the tank, right? It's telling me how many cubic feet of volume I have in it. And then it's telling me how many hours I need to exchange, and look how many thousand cubic feet per minute I'm exchanging the air. Okay. So that's how we know how we're changing the airflow and how we're changing the airflow. Has anybody used any type of calculators like this before? Any of y'all? Usually it's industrial hygienists. So I'd be really surprised. I mean, I've only had to do it a handful of times, and that's it. Okay. See, yeah, I don't think anybody has. But just to let you know, it's there. Okay. Online if you want to find it. Okay. Always be cautious of obviously viruses and stuff, right? Okay. So and then of course, PPE, right? Make sure we have our full body harnesses, lifelines, air purifying respirators, air supplied respirators, and then any additional controls that we have to have in place. What are we talking about? Things like barricades, right? Any type of traffic management equipment, right? Lockout, tagout equipment, right? Any type of pipe and blinding, okay? Anything, locking out any agitators, anything that we need. I'll find y'all. I'll tell you what. Don't start searching all that CFM. I'm gonna find everybody a good easy one, okay? Because there are a few good ones online. So I'm gonna go ahead and find them so that we can get all the point, okay? So okay, so then folks, so look, this is what I want to do, right? We're already at 840, and then look at ventilation on the last one, right? I already told you about this. It's called positive pressure, right? You have negative and positive pressure. I'm at page 12, folks, okay, on the bottom, and you see how they're blowing in ventilation. So that's positive pressure, okay? And that's what we're looking at. So, a lot of times you may do positive and negative pressure at the same time. Okay. Look, this is what I want to do, folks. I want to stop at this point. Let me just walk you through a couple of items on here. I know a few of you are newer on here, weren't able to be on last week or the week before, because what we have left right now is we're going to go into excavation, and I would rather hold the next 20-25 pages until next week. All right. Instead of getting started with excavation and not being able to finish it, I'd rather hold it. Now, what I am going to do is this: I'm going to send you two sets of videos, at least two sets of videos. Okay, I'll probably send you more, but I'll send you the two that I really want you to watch now, which are going to be two confined space videos and then two OSHA animated videos on excavations themselves. Okay, so I'll send you those. That way, you'll kind of get an idea, and then let me just walk you through what's here, though. Okay, page 15 is going to be it's a trench box and excavations going on. All right. And then you get into soil. Look at page 17. You see how it's soil types. You'll see it in the video about soil types. Soil types is one of those things I tell people that, um, you kind of got to know where you to tap out, right? And let me tell you, y'all, I tap out at soil types. Okay. I mean, I can test for it. Okay. However, I'd rather bring in somebody who's a little bit more practices it on a regular basis. But I've definitely been trained to do it. I just don't do it on a regular basis. Okay. Look at page 18. You'll see page 18 what it is. It's the different types of collapses that you might have in a trench. Okay, it shows you how the dirt starts to collapse off. All right, and then look at page 20. You start seeing a little bit more of how it starts to crack off, and also how it starts to bubble and heave up and bulge out. All right, we're going to cover all this just so you know next week. Okay, and then it's going to go all the way and look at page 25. 24 and 25, and those are all your protective systems, okay, that we'd be putting in place. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hold off at that point. I'm gonna send you the videos. Give me till tomorrow, probably tomorrow evening late or even Saturday morning. All right, I'll put together the videos for you. I'm gonna put together also let's see, Isaac, Pat, Sue, everybody who Monique, I think you said it as well. Anybody that's going to be testing out early, I'm going to send y'all. I sent out last week the answers. Let me show you really quickly what I'm talking about. Okay, so Okay, give me 1 second. I'm trying to find this for you. Let's see. Okay, right here. That can you give me a heads up? Let me know if you received this already from me. I emailed this out, I think, on Tuesday. Can you let me know if you got this or not? This is the answer key for this whole book. You do? Okay, good. Okay, most of you got it. Okay, some people weren't on. Okay, what this is, I'll send it out again just in case. Monique, Pat, I think you guys got it too, but I'll send it out just in case. What this is, folks, is this is all the answer keys to the page, to the white pages in the back of each module. Okay, the green questions that you have in the book, you okay, great. The green questions that you have in the book, you already have the answers in the book. Okay, so anybody, like I said, like you know, anybody who didn't see how we walked through the book, let me just go through it really quickly. Let me give you an example. Go to page 15 in module 1. Page 15, you'll see, right, 2 questions, right? And then you keep on going through. Now we're going to be, that's module 1, section 2. Now go to section 3, which is on page 19. You'll see 1 question. Okay, now I'm going to go one more section to section 4 and go to page 22, and then you'll see section 4. Okay, now if you go to page 67, you'll see all those questions that I just showed you, sections 2, 3, and 4. Now if you look at page 67, y'all see all the answers there. All the answers in section review answer key in your book on page 67 is for all the green questions. Okay, you do not have, that's for all the green questions. Okay, all the white questions that are at the end of page 59 and 60, all the white questions, the review questions, are the ones that I'm sending you. Okay, so just so you know the difference. Okay, the ones that I sent you, and I'll send them again. Like I said, the white ones are the ones I'm sending you. The green ones are already in the book, and they're in that yellow block. Okay. All right, folks, so let's do this. Let's go ahead and shut it down for the night. You know, again, I appreciate everybody trying to bear through with as much as possible, all right? I'm going to talk to Centrex and try to find out what needed to be done. I know I reset multiple times from my point, and obviously I'm not the only one getting cut off, so that's why I can only assume it was them, plus they were helping me out earlier, too, to set up this new link. So y'all have a great night. Thank you for your patience, and then I'll start sending you some emails between tomorrow and Friday, and I'm also going to do the answer key this weekend for the other book, the 18 modules, and get you that as well. Okay. Any questions, anybody that's still left on the line? Okay. Thank you, folks. Appreciate it. All right. Appreciate your patience. Y'all have a good night, folks. Thank you.